Mandelson scandal seems not just to be affecting the Labour Party, which is understandable in a way, but it's not leading to any support, as you might expect, for the standard opposition parties. And that is perhaps disturbing for those interested in democracy.
Voting opens in the Gorton and Denton by-election tomorrow, and against an extraordinary political backdrop. Peter Mandelson says his arrest was triggered by false claims that he was about to flee the country. What effect will this have? Well, it has traditionally been a safe Labour seat in Gorton and Denton, but it may now see strong competition from the Greens and Reform UK. The Prime Minister has plenty at stake, and how does this all link together? The historian Vernon Bogdanor says that this could be about more than one seat. It could signal the end of Britain's traditional two-party system. He's been writing about this today in the Times, in the Thunderer column, and joins me now. Vernon Bogdanor, good morning.
Good morning.
So look, let's talk about how the Epstein scandal might feed into this by-election that we've got coming up. You say it might not just damage Labour, but delegitimise all the major parties. Explain why.
Yes, we can see that already in the survey evidence of the Gorton and Denton by-election. Normally, if the ruling party is damaged, as Labour is in this case, you'd expect support to go to the official opposition, the Conservatives, or perhaps the Liberal Democrats, who are often the repository, or have been in the past, for protest votes. But in this constituency, it seems to be going to Reform UK and to the Greens. And there's a paradox that the wasted vote argument, which used to be used against the minor parties, is now being used against the Conservatives and Liberal Democrats. People on the right say, well, look, there's no point voting Conservative. They can't win the seat, but Reform UK can. And if you're on the left, you say, look, no point voting Lib Dem. They can't win, but the Greens could. So we're seeing what could be a seismic change in our party system.
And would you put this kind of a plague on all your houses sentiment? Would you put that, directly down to the Peter Mandelson story? Because I think some people would feel this has been bubbling away for quite a long time.
Not only the Peter Mandelson story, this comes on top of other things which, as it were, fit into the pattern. Because if we remember the general election in 2024, the Labour Party under Keir Starmer said it could deliver change and fairly rapidly. Now, a lot of people in Gorton and Denton, which is on the whole a deprived constituency, feel that change hasn't actually occurred. And then they remember the Conservatives, and that didn't secure the change they wanted. And they're beginning to ask themselves, can any of the parties deliver change? Now, the Mandelson scandal appears to them as really an establishment kind of crisis, that there's one rule for the global political and financial elite and another rule for everyone else, that the global elite acts on standards quite different from those of ordinary people.
You trace this mood in your piece back to the 2008 financial crisis and the expenses scandal a year later. How important were those moments in sort of shaping precisely where we are now?
Well, I think the banking scandal of 2008, the credit crunch, if you like, was absolutely fundamental, because it destroyed the argument that had been used by New Labour that if only you allow the rich their head, then everyone will benefit. It seemed the bankers weren't as competent as everyone thought. They were also unethical, but they seemed to get away with it, whereas a lot of ordinary people suffered. So it led to the trope of the elite against the people, which is the main theme of reformist parties. Of populist parties like Reform UK, the Greens, and in America, of course, Donald Trump.
Yeah, turning to the Gorton and Denton by-election specifically, the Green Party are keen to present themselves as a party unlike any sort of traditional party that Britain has had before. That's very much part of their messaging. Reform, more recently, at least on a national level, albeit maybe their candidate in Gorton and Denton is a bit different from this, have been trying to, it seems to me at any rate, to present themselves as being much more of a mainstream party, much more like the natural heirs to the Conservative Party, much more reassuring, dare I say it, much more centrist. Do you think that's over?
Well, I think it depends where you look at these parties. I think both Reform UK and Greens are similar in the sense that they say the real political battle is not between left and right, but between the people and the elite are betraying you. Now, for different reasons, Reform UK say they're betraying you because they haven't controlled immigration. The Greens say they're betraying you because they haven't done the things that the Labour Party promised. particularly redistribute income. And also, of course, the Greens make a lot about the Middle East and Gaza. And the Reform candidate, Matthew Goodwin, has said, well, the Greens care much more about Gaza than about Gorton. But we shall see whether the voters agree with that tomorrow in the by-election.
So tell us a bit then about the what could be the long-term implications of this. What does it do to our political system if we stray away from two-party or indeed three-party politics? Will there be more parties like the Greens and Reform, or will we just have a different 2/3-party system?
Well, the Gorton by-election shows there are 5 parties, and we also have George Galloway's Workers' Party, which decided not to put up a candidate. That makes 6. And we've got the new party, your party, headed by either Jeremy Corbyn or Zara Sultana, we're not clear. That makes 7. In Scotland and Wales, you've got 8, because you've got the Nationalists as well. But we have an electoral system which is geared really to 2 parties. And we saw in the last election in 2024 that Keir Starmer won a large overall majority, a landslide in fact, on just 34% of the vote. That is 2/3 of those voting voted against Labour. Now, I believe the argument about proportional representation will come again to the fore, because we've got an electoral system made for 2 parties, but we've got a multi-party system. I suspect that will be permanent.
Yeah, I mean, that's sort of fascinating to look ahead to. And look, I mean, so while it's possible that that the Green Party and Reform, if we were going to put them together, are entirely different and going to be completely immune from the scandals and complications that we have seen in the past in the Conservative Party and the Labour Party and to some extent in the Lib Dems. And they're going to be completely different, much cleaner living politicians without any entanglements with the rich and with big business and so on. It's also possible that things don't turn out like that. And if a few years down the line, voters are equally disillusioned with the Green Party, with Reform, as they are right now with the Conservative Party or the Labour Party, what happens then? Does that sort of, I don't know, does that benefit the traditional parties, that people go, oh well, they're no worse than the other ones, or does the same sort of contamination sort of feed into them as well? Do we end up just with a very nihilist electorate?
Well, Hugo, you're peering a long way into the future. And as a historian, I think it's difficult enough to find out what happened in the past, let alone what will happen in the future. You may be absolutely right that disillusionment with the Greens and Reform will also occur. What I think we know is that the electorate at present, voters in present, are turned off by all the major parties, Conservatives, Labour and Liberal Democrats. And the Mandelson scandal seems not just to be affecting the Labour Party, which is understandable in a way, but it's not leading to any support, as you might expect, for the standard opposition parties. And that is perhaps disturbing for those interested in democracy. It's worth remembering that the last election, although we had so many parties to choose from, only 58% voted, second lowest since 1918. And in the Gorton by-election, if you look at the general election in 2024, only 47% could be bothered to vote. In other words, more than half the voters just couldn't be bothered to turn out. That is very worrying for the future of our democracy. And I think people ought to be looking at that and considering what can be done about it.